The First Contact's Price. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of humanity's flagship Terran Dawn, her weathered face reflecting in the reinforced plasteel as she watched New Eden burn, the colony's atmospheric defense grid. Humanity's proudest achievement in their expansion to the stars lay in ruins. Massive Nexari warships, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight like cosmic predators, methodically reduced decades of human endeavor to ash. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding before her. The bridge crew's fingers flew across holographic interfaces, desperately trying to make sense of the overwhelming data streaming in. 23,000 colonists confirmed in emergency shelters. Admiral Lieutenant Rivera reported, his dark eyes fixed on the scrolling numbers. "The Nexari ships are." He hesitated, swallowing hard. "They're not even bothering to target our remaining defensive positions. They're focusing on infrastructure. Methodical. Systematic." Chen's jaw tightened. Humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization had come just 3 years ago, when a Nexari scout ship encountered the mining outpost on Europa. The crystalline beings had seemed cautious but diplomatic at first, their translators converting their harmonic language into workable English. But that changed when they discovered how quickly humans were advancing. "They fear us," Dr. Emily Zhao had explained during the last emergency council meeting. The xenologist hologram had flickered as she gestured to data streams showing Nexari communication patterns. "Not for what we are, but for what we might become. Their civilization has spent millennia achieving technological stability. They see our rate of advancement as an infection in their ordered galaxy." A violent explosion lit up the observation deck, drawing Chen from her memories. Another orbital elevator, another monument to human engineering, collapsed into the atmosphere like a falling angel trailing fire. "Ma'am," Commander Jackson's voice cracked over the comm. "The civilian evacuation ships are ready, but the Nexari have positioned interceptors along all standard vectors." Chen closed her eyes for a moment, decades of tactical training crystallizing into clarity. "Deploy the mining drones." "The mining drones, Admiral." Rivera looked up from his station, confusion evident. "All of them. The automated ones we use for asteroid mining. Launch them toward the Nexari fleet." Understanding dawned on Rivera's face as his fingers flew across his console. The drones were little more than engines and Waldos, designed to break up asteroids for their mineral wealth. But against ships, thousands of small points of light erupted from the Terran Dawn's launch bays, swarming toward the Nexari fleet like angry fireflies. The crystalline ships immediately shifted their attention, energy weapons lashing out to destroy the perceived threat. But there were too many, and the drones were too small, too agile. "Civilian ships, proceed along Vector 793, Chen ordered as the first drones impacted the Nexari vessels. They didn't carry explosives. They didn't need to. Mass times velocity told the tale as their reinforced mining arms, designed to break up nickel-iron asteroids, crashed into crystalline hull plates at relative velocities of thousands of kilometers per second. The Nexari fleet's formation broke as they tried to deal with this unprecedented threat. Ships designed for large-scale energy combat found themselves ill-equipped to handle what amounted to a swarm of space debris, aimed with malicious intent. "Get our people out of there," Chen ordered as the civilian ships slipped past the disrupted Nexari line. "And send a tight beam to command. Tell them." She watched another building complex collapse on the surface of New Eden. "Tell them we know their weakness now. The Nexari think in straight lines, in elegant solutions. They don't expect us to turn mining tools into weapons, to fight dirty." She turned to face her crew, her voice carrying the weight of command and conviction. "They think we're primitive because we're young. They think we're predictable because we're still growing. They're wrong, and we're going to show them just how wrong they are." The Terran Dawn shuddered as it absorbed a glancing hit from a Nexari weapon. But Chen smiled grimly as she watched more mining drones tear into the alien fleet's formation. Humanity had lost this battle before it began. The Nexary's technological advantage was too great, but they'd learned something far more valuable than any single colony. They'd learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their weapons. It was in their ability to adapt, to take the ordinary and make it extraordinary, to look at a mining drone and see a weapon. The Nexary might have won this battle, but in doing so, they taught humanity how to fight back. As the civilian ships jumped to safety and the Terran dawn prepared to follow, Chen sent one last message to command: initiate Phoenix Protocol. They thought they were cauterizing the threat. Instead, they lit a fire that will never go out. The stars stretched into lines as the ship entered jump space, leaving New Eden to its fate. But in the darkness between stars, plans were already forming. Humanity had lost its innocence today, but they gained something far more valuable: the knowledge that even gods can bleed if you're clever enough to find their weakness. The Phoenix Protocol. Deep within the asteroid belt of the seemingly abandoned star system, the research station Prometheus floated in the void, its external lights darkened to maintain the illusion of desertion. Inside, Dr. Marcus Wong stared at the holographic display showing their latest test results, his eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of experimental quantum signatures. "They're still watching the wrong places," Captain Maya Patel remarked, floating next to him in the zero-gravity laboratory. Latest intelligence shows the Nexary have increased patrols along their borders by 300%, searching for traditional drive signatures. Marcus nodded, manipulating the hologram with practiced gestures. "That's because they're looking for what they expect to see. Their entire civilization is built on predictable patterns, technological progress following predetermined paths." He highlighted a particular data stream. "But we're not following their rulebook anymore." The laboratory around them hummed with activity as scientists and engineers worked on Project Phoenix, humanity's response to the Nexary threat. After the fall of New Eden, the remaining human colonies had appeared to withdraw, consolidating their positions and maintaining only minimal space presence. The Nexary had interpreted this as submission, exactly as planned. "Show me the stealth system test results," Maya requested, her dark eyes scanning the data as Marcus brought up the relevant figures. The experiments they'd been conducting were radical departures from traditional space warfare doctrine. Instead of trying to match Nexary technology directly, they'd looked for ways to circumvent it entirely. "The quantum ghost drive is exceeding expectations," Marcus explained, expanding a particular graph. "By spreading a ship's quantum signature across multiple probabilistic states, we can make it virtually invisible to standard detection methods. The Nexary sensors are actually working against them. They're so precise that they automatically filter out anything that doesn't match their understanding of how ships should behave in spacetime." Maya smiled grimly. "They're so advanced they've forgotten how to look for simple things, like the mining drones at New Eden." She paused, remembering the reports from that day. "How's the swarm intelligence program coming along?" Marcus switched displays, showing a simulation of thousands of small objects moving in concert. The basic principle came from studying ant colonies, believe it or not. Each individual unit follows simple rules, but together they create complex, adaptive behaviors. We've applied that to our new microships. The simulation showed clouds of tiny vessels, each no bigger than a human hand, coordinating to form larger structures. The best part is, they're practically invisible to Nexary sensors. Their crystalline technology is designed to detect large organized energy signatures, a dispersed cloud of small, semi-autonomous units operating on minimal power. They might as well be space dust. A soft chime interrupted their discussion as Dr. Sarah Chen, daughter of Admiral Chen from New Eden, entered the laboratory. Her presence always carried echoes of that fateful day, but she channeled her grief into determination. "The biomimetic hull coating is ready for testing," she announced, bringing up her own data on the shared holographic display. "We've successfully replicated the light-absorbing properties of deep-sea creatures from Earth. When combined with the quantum ghost drive, It should make our ships nearly impossible to detect through conventional means. Maya studied the new information with intense interest. Time frame for deployment: 3 months for the first prototype vessel, Sarah replied. We're calling it the Shadow of Eden. It's small, about the size of a pre-war corvette, but it incorporates everything we've developed here. Quantum ghost drive, swarm drone bays, biomimetic coding, and she paused for effect. The probability torpedoes. Marcus raised an eyebrow at that last item. The probability torpedoes were perhaps their most ambitious development. Weapons that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously until impact, making them impossible to intercept with conventional defenses. They were exactly the kind of impossible technology that the Nexari would never think to look for. 3 months. Maya mused, her mind already working through tactical possibilities. That gives us time to train the first crew and run full system tests. The Nexari still think we're licking our wounds, trying to rebuild along traditional lines. They won't be expecting this. They're still expanding their patrol zones, Sarah noted, bringing up the latest intelligence data. But they're following predictable patterns, establishing regular sweep zones, and maintaining strict formations. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force applied with mathematical precision, which makes them vulnerable to chaos, Marcus concluded. Every system we're developing here is designed to exploit that weakness. They understand power, but they don't understand creativity. They know how to overwhelm, but they don't know how to adapt. Maya pushed away from the holographic display, floating toward the laboratory's small observation window. Beyond it, she could see other sections of Project Phoenix taking shape. Fabrication units constructing swarm drones by the thousands, testing chambers for the new stealth systems, and the skeletal framework of the Shadow of Eden itself. 3 years, she said quietly. 3 years they thought us beaten, retreating into our remaining territories like a wounded animal. But we weren't wounded. We were evolving. And soon they're going to learn what humanity does best, turning weakness into strength, finding ways to fight that no one else would think of. She turned back to her colleagues, her expression determined. Prepare the Shadow of Eden for launch. It's time to show the Nexari that they didn't break us at New Eden. They just taught us how to become something they'll never see coming. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't just a research project. It was humanity's declaration that they would not go quietly into the night. They would rise from the ashes of defeat, armed not just with new technology, but with the one weapon the Nexari couldn't comprehend: the human capacity for innovation. Children of Terra. Lieutenant James Santos held his breath as the massive Nexari patrol cruiser passed less than a kilometer from the Shadow of Eden's position. The crystalline vessel's sensor beams swept through the space they occupied, but the quantum ghost drive performed exactly as designed. The patrol ship's computers filtered out their impossible sensor readings as background noise. Status of the swarm. Commander Elena Rodriguez whispered from the captain's chair, though there was no logical reason to lower her voice in the vacuum of space. Some instincts ran too deep to ignore. Maintaining optimal dispersal pattern, James reported, checking his displays. The cloud of microships surrounded their vessel in an invisible protective shell, each tiny unit ready to reform into whatever configuration the situation demanded. Quantum signatures are stable and synchronized. The bridge of the Shadow of Eden was unlike any previous human vessel. Instead of traditional view screens and control panels, the crew worked within a holographic environment that extended their awareness through the swarm network. It felt less like operating a ship and more like being part of a living organism. We're approaching the target zone, Elena announced, her hands moving through the holographic interface to adjust their course minutely. Time to see if our intelligence was worth the risk of acquiring it. Their mission had seemed impossible just months ago. Penetrate deep into Nexari space, locate one of their primary research facilities, and gather intelligence on their next planned offensive. But the Phoenix Protocol had changed everything about how humanity approached space warfare. The shadow of Eden slipped through the Nexari defense grid like a ghost through walls. Their biomimetic hull absorbed or deflected any stray energy emissions, while the quantum ghost drive kept them technically existing in multiple states at once, confounding the hyper-advanced but rigidly programmed Nexari detection systems. "Contact," announced Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the sensor station. "Large installation detected at bearing 347 Mark II. Structure matches intelligence estimates for a Nexari research facility." The holographic display shifted, showing them a massive crystalline structure that seemed to grow out of a small planetoid. Energy patterns pulsed through its latticed framework in mathematical precision, beautiful but alien. "Deploy surveillance swarm," Alina ordered. "Passive collection only. Let's not reveal our new toys unless we absolutely have to." James initiated the command sequence, and hundreds of microships detached from their protective cloud, spreading out toward the facility like dandelion seeds in a breeze. Each one was practically invisible on its own, and their scattered approach meant no single unit would trigger the facility's defenses. "First data streams coming in," Sarah reported, her fingers dancing through the holographic controls. "There? Oh God," her voice caught. "Report, Lieutenant," Alina commanded, though her own expression showed concern at Sarah's reaction. "They're developing a resonance weapon," Sarah explained, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Something designed to shatter a planet's crust by exploiting natural fault lines. They're planning to use it on our remaining colonies. No more precision strikes like at New Eden. They want to make sure nothing survives this time." Alina's jaw tightened. How close are they to completion? Based on these readings, weeks, maybe less. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "We can't let them finish this weapon." James watched as Alina absorbed this information, seeing the weight of command settle onto her shoulders. They had come equipped for surveillance, not assault. But sometimes plans had to change. "Lieutenant Santos," Alina said after a moment of careful consideration, "how many of our probability torpedoes would it take to collapse their containment fields?" James ran the calculations through their tactical systems. 3, properly placed. "But Commander, that would mean revealing our presence, yes." Alina nodded. "But it would also mean saving billions of lives." She straightened in her chair. "Besides, the Nexari need to learn that humanity isn't as helpless as they think. It's time we showed them what the children of Terra can do." "Swarm units reporting increased activity in the facility," Sarah announced. "They're powering up something big." "No choice then," Alina decided. "Battle stations. Lieutenant Santos, configure the swarm for maximum disruption." "Sarah, I want targeting solutions for those containment fields. We're about to remind the Nexari why they feared our potential in the first place." The shadow of Eden's systems hummed as power was diverted to offensive configurations. The protective swarm of microships began shifting, forming into attack patterns that would have been impossible for larger vessels to achieve. "Remember," Alina addressed her crew, "we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human colony, every child who deserves to grow up under an open sky instead of in fear of Nexari weapons. We're fighting to prove that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to use it in ways our enemies never expect." James felt a surge of pride as he prepared the probability torpedoes. The Nexari had thought they were being methodical, eliminating a potential threat before it could mature. Instead, they had forced humanity to evolve faster than anyone could have predicted. The shadow of Eden moved into attack position, its quantum ghost drive maintaining their invisibility until the last possible moment. They were about to announce humanity's return to the galactic stage in a way the Nexari would never forget. "For New Eden," Sarah whispered as she locked in the targeting solutions. "For all of us," Alina corrected. "Fire. The human element." The crystalline walls of the Nexari High Command Chamber vibrated with discord as the harmonious consciousness struggled to process the impossible. Their most secure research facility, protected by their most advanced detection systems, lay in ruins, More disturbing still were the sensor logs, or rather, their conspicuous absence. High Commander Valve 7 watched the cascading light patterns that represented the collective confusion of their leadership council. In all their millennia of existence, the Nexari had never encountered a force that could simply disappear. The attack bears human signatures. Valve 7's resonating thoughts translated through the chamber. Yet their technological level was assessed at centuries behind our own. This cannot be. At that moment, across 16 Nexari systems, synchronized attacks began. Not against their military installations or population centers. Those remained untouched. Instead, swarms of tiny vessels appeared from nowhere, targeting their sensor arrays and communication nodes with devastating precision. Aboard the Shadow of Eden, Commander Rodriguez watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction as reports flooded in from other Phoenix Protocol vessels. Status of the Nexari response. Chaos, James reported, unable to keep a note of pride from his voice. They're deploying their fleets in standard defensive formations, but our swarms are too small and dispersed for their weapons to track effectively. The quantum ghost drives are making it impossible for them to distinguish real targets from sensor ghosts. Sarah's hands flew across her console as she coordinated the attacks. The Nexari command and control structure is fragmenting. They rely on perfect information and predetermined responses. Take those away, and even superior technology becomes a weakness. Elena finished. Time to move to Phase 2. Signal the humanity's dawn. Across the sector, Admiral Chen's new flagship emerged from quantum probability space, leading a fleet that had supposedly never existed. Unlike the streamlined crystalline aesthetics of Nexari vessels, human ships now bristled with seemingly random protrusions and asymmetrical designs, layouts that optimized their quantum signature dispersal patterns rather than conventional space warfare doctrine. This is Admiral Chen to all Phoenix Protocol vessels, her voice carried across the encrypted quantum channels. Execute Operation Mindshift. The human fleet didn't engage the Nexari directly. Instead, they began broadcasting on all frequencies, transmitting data packets that contained something the crystalline beings had never expected. An invitation to talk. They're responding, Sarah announced, surprise evident in her voice. Multiple Nexari vessels are standing down their weapons. I think they're actually confused. Elena nodded. This had been the riskiest part of their strategy. The Nexari weren't evil. They were simply unable to comprehend change that didn't follow their understood patterns. Humanity had just demonstrated not only that they could fight in ways the Nexari couldn't counter, but that they chose not to destroy when they had the chance. Incoming transmission, James reported. It's different from their usual communication patterns. More uncertain. The holographic display shifted, showing the crystalline form of Valve 7. The Nexari commander's usually precise harmonics wavered with what humans would recognize as confusion and curiosity. You could have destroyed our primary defense networks. Valve 7's translated thoughts emerge. Yet you chose to demonstrate capability without maximizing damage. This does not follow any known strategic doctrine. That's exactly the point, Elena responded, standing from her command chair. Humans don't follow doctrines. We adapt. We create. We find new ways to solve problems. You saw our potential for growth as a threat because you couldn't predict our path. But that same unpredictability means we can choose peace even when war seems inevitable. The crystalline being's surface rippled with complex patterns. Your species interests us now. Perhaps our initial assessment was incomplete. Admiral Chen's voice joined the conversation. We're offering you a choice, High Commander. Continue trying to contain something that cannot be contained, or work with us to explore possibilities you haven't imagined yet. The Nexari commander's response took several moments. An eternity for their kind. Your quantum ghost drive. It violates our understanding of possible technology paths, yet it exists. Perhaps there are other paths we have not considered. Elena smiled. This was humanity's true victory, not destroying the Nexari, but forcing them to grow beyond their own limitations. That's the thing about humans, High Commander. We don't just find new paths. We create them, and we're willing to show you how, if you're willing to learn. The crystalline being's surface shifted to a harmonic pattern that the translation software interpreted as agreement. We will listen. Across human space, cheers erupted as news of the Nexari's response spread. They had achieved something greater than military victory. They had proven that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics, but their ability to make even their enemies question their own assumptions. Send word to Phoenix Command. Alina ordered, watching as the Nexari fleet began to stand down across all sectors. Tell them Operation Mindshift was a success. The real work begins now. Sarah looked up from her station. The real work. Of course, Alina smiled. Now we get to show them something even more revolutionary than our technology. Our imagination. Tomorrow's dawn. 1 year after Operation Mindshift, the orbital laboratories above New Eden's restored surface hummed with unprecedented activity. Inside the largest facility, Dr. Marcus Wong stood beside Valve 7, watching as human and Nexari scientists worked together on technology that would have been impossible for either species alone. Your quantum ghost drive fundamentally altered our understanding of possibility. The crystalline being's thoughts resonated. We had spent millennia perfecting our technology along established paths. You showed us that perfection can be a prison. Marcus nodded, manipulating a holographic model of their latest joint project. And your crystalline computing architecture has revolutionized our approach to quantum calculations. Together, we're achieving things neither of our species could have imagined separately. The laboratory around them showcased this synthesis. Nexari crystals merged with human organic computing systems, creating hybrid technologies that defied conventional classification. Swarm units now incorporated crystalline processing nodes, while Nexari ships have begun experimenting with quantum probability fields. Commander Alina Rodriguez entered the lab, her uniform now bearing both human and Nexari insignia. The first joint exploration fleet is ready for launch, she announced. The Shared Horizon awaits its crew. The Shared Horizon represented everything they had achieved in the past year. A ship that combined Nexari crystalline technology with human adaptability and innovation. Its hybrid crew would be the first to explore regions of space that neither species had dared venture into alone. Admiral Chen is waiting in the command center, Alina continued. The ceremony begins in an hour. As they made their way through the station, Marcus reflected on how much had changed. The same corridors that had once echoed with war preparations now buzzed with the excitement of discovery. Scientists who had once worked to outmaneuver each other now collaborated on solving the universe's greatest mysteries. The command center's observation dome offered a stunning view of New Eden below. The planet's surface, once scared by conflict, now gleamed with the combined architecture of both civilizations. Crystalline spires rose alongside organic human designs, creating a cityscape that symbolized their newfound harmony. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of the gathered crowd, her presence still commanding despite the years that had passed since the conflict. Beside her stood the full Nexari harmonious consciousness, their crystalline forms arranged in a pattern that humans had learned to recognize as celebration. 3 years ago, Chen began, her voice carrying across the hushed chamber, we stood on the brink of mutual destruction. Today, we stand on the brink of mutual discovery. The Shared Horizon represents more than just a technological achievement. It represents the power of changing how we think. Valve 7 moved forward, their crystalline surface rippling with harmonious patterns. Humans taught us that true advancement comes not from perfecting what we know, but from daring to attempt what we believe impossible. In return, we hope we have taught them that stability and change need not be enemies. Through the dome's transparent walls, the Shared Horizon came into view, emerging from its construction dock. The ship's design was neither human nor Nexari, but something entirely new. crystalline structures flowed into organic curves, while quantum probability fields shimmered around its hull like a living aurora. The quantum ghost drive taught us that reality is more flexible than we imagined. Marcus addressed the gathered crowd. But it was human creativity that showed us how to bend it. Now, together, we're learning to reshape it entirely. Elena stepped forward, her new role as captain of the shared horizon marking her as a symbol of this cooperation. We once feared each other's differences. Now we celebrate them. Every discovery we've made together has proven that diversity isn't just beneficial, it's essential for true growth. As the ceremony concluded and the shared horizon prepared for its maiden voyage, Admiral Chen found herself standing with Valve 7 in a quiet corner of the observation dome. Below them, New Eden continued its rotation, its surface a testament to resurrection and renewal. Did you know? Valve 7's thoughts were directed privately to Chen. When you launched Operation Mindshift, did you know it would lead to this? Chen smiled, watching as human and Nexari crew members boarded the shared horizon together. We knew we had to find a way to survive. But this, she gestured to the scene before them. This is what humans do best. We don't just overcome obstacles, we transform them into opportunities. We don't just make peace with our enemies, we learn from them. The shared horizon began to power up its hybrid drives, preparing to venture into the unknown. As it did, its hull caught the light of New Eden's sun, reflecting it in patterns that were neither human nor Nexari, but something wonderfully, impossibly new. We're not just exploring space anymore, Chen concluded. We're exploring possibility itself, and we're doing it together. The ship disappeared in a flash of quantum probability, carrying humanity's greatest gift to the stars. The ability to imagine what could be, rather than accept what is. The war that had begun with fear of human potential had ended by proving that potential was nothing to fear. It was, instead, the key to unlocking a future greater than either species could have achieved alone.